I decided to saw about 1.5 inches off the tip of that weaker limb, which will effectively stiffen it. I'd also noticed that the extra bit I'd added to pad the bow out came much further on the thicker, lower, stiffer limb than it did on the upper limb. And this is sort of the slightly weak point on the upper limb is around here. So by taking some off the tip, it effectively moves the weaker point towards the end, where you'd expect a bow to be weaker anyway. So it all sort of makes sense, and it will just help just stiffen that right limb a tiny bit. The other nice thing is, having sawn a bit off the end, we can look at the glue line. Or the point is, you can't see the glue line, which shows that it's a nice glue line. I did that with the Cascamite. I had problems with with a bad batch of Cascamite, but I got some decent stuff direct from Polyvine who make it. So if you're buying Cascamite, get it from Polyvine, polyvine.com. They're the actual manufacturers. It's good stuff. You can see how flat bellied it is at the minute. So what I'll probably do, I'll stick another temporary knock on that end, pop it back on the tiller. Right, I've sawed 1 inch off this end, and of course sawing some off the end moves the geometric centre of the bow. Now, where I'd marked the centre before, I was very slightly out, so in fact it's moved it, yeah, about 1 inch that way. I've also marked the arrow path so I can sit it more accurately on the tiller. I deliberately haven't done anything else, so this way we can see if it's made any difference. It'll probably be barely perceptible, but it's much better if I show cause and effect rather than doing a load of work and then go, hey presto, see what I've done. Let's see if it's made any difference. Try and get out of the camera shot. There, we can see a bit of difference. The lower limb, the left limb, is still stiff. The right limb is still a bit weak, but I don't think that's as bad as it was before. And if we mark the stiff points and weak points, we can see it's relatively weak here. I mean, I'm not overstraining it, that's 30 pounds. We're a bit stiff here, and the left limb's generally stiff, but generally stiff also where I've added this slightly thicker section, you know, where I've added the extra timber there. I think that's a perceptible difference. It's up to you to make your own judgment. But now I'm happier with that. That doesn't seem quite so weak. I'll start rounding off the corners a bit now because it's very sort of rectangular and American longbow shaped at the minute. But yeah, I'm happy with that. I haven't taken off too much. It hasn't made things worse is the way to look at it. If you're making a bow, it's successive approximation. You're slowly moving towards a final aim, and if you can make things better at each step, or at least avoid making them worse, you'll gradually get there. Now, I've just done a little bit of work on it, rounded the corners on the upper limb, mostly at the tip and here. I've avoided doing it too much at this slightly weaker point, but mostly I've taken quite a bit off the corners, rounding the belly on this lower limb. I did the upper limb with a rasp, just a little whisk taking the corners off. I did that on the belt sander just in the interest of speed, just holding it, running the corners across the end of the rounded end of the belt sander. Just do the corners, vary the angle slightly. We'll have another look. I don't expect it will have done a lot, but it's probably improved it a little bit such that I can feel happy pulling it back to 35. I could have pulled it to 35 before, but I'd rather err on the side of caution. Yeah, you can see it's still, there's 35, yeah, still stiff on that left, but it's looking better. looking a bit stiff here, but we're moving in the right direction. I'm not in a rush, it's a hot day. That was 35, so now I can and the string is, you can see it's not hanging down very far. It's only hanging down 5.5 inches or so. I can interpolate the draw weight, draw length. I think we're on track for the 35-pound bow, which is what I'm after. There you go. It's now the next day, and I glued this riser section on overnight and I've been blending it in. I made a slight mistake, which hopefully will disappear. Where I'd rounded the corners on the belly before gluing it on, I've now got a line of glue. But as I narrow it and round it more, that glue line will hopefully disappear. You know, it's where the glue has gone into the chamfer. So I'll put a square flat block onto something with a chamfered edge. But it'll probably have a leather grip on anyway, so it's not the end of the world. The thing you have to watch when you're blending in a little riser section like that, it's not a lot, just enough to make it comfy on the grip. It's very easy to end up, instead of a smooth curve here, you end up going down and taking a chunk out here. That's a slight exaggeration, but you end up with a little dip here and a weak point if you're not careful. You have to take great... Right, I've relieved the belly where that thick point was with my rasp. Now I'll try the verniers again, and we go on there, we slide along. It just starts getting tight near the node, which is fine to some extent. You've got to allow, you know, the node is a small localised bit of thickness. You can't put a little V-shaped groove opposite it. You know, you've got to swell up for the node. You can't cut a tiny bit away there. You can undulate slightly, but there's times where you have to allow it to get a little bit thicker. There, and we tighten up there. So you can see we're just tightening up just either side of the node. Maybe I'll take a little bit more off here still. Just this side of the node. We're about right. Maybe a whisker more. It's a lot better than it was, so I can tie it up on the tiller again. Just looking at it by eye now, you can see it's a much more even taper. And these tips are probably going to have to be tapered a bit more yet, but it's just slowly getting areas sorted. Like this area looks a bit thick still, so these corners will get rounded, do a bit more. But it's a mistake to do too much without a quick check on the tiller. Right, so we'll have a look. It's got a visor on it now. Yeah, you can see the bulk of the visor is below the centre line where my hand will be. Evened out that left limb a little bit more. Yeah, she's still stiff on the left limb, but not as bad, yeah. Yeah, stiff round about here. Try and avoid getting in camera shot. Yeah, overall that's looking, yeah, it's tilting quite hard that way, which is also showing that the left limb's way too stiff. So it's like a seesaw, or teeter-totter for those in America. That seems like a weird name to me, but there you go. Right, I'm gonna ease that off considerably and then pop her back on the tiller. Right, when I said I'd do a little bit of work on it, I thought you can't see what I've done, so I'll show you. That's about 25 strokes of the rasp on the corners. I haven't actually touched the crown of the belly at all. So this is all this stuff about an English longbow having a D-shaped belly. Well, this is where it comes from. I'm working the corners off and it's naturally making it D-shaped, and that was about 25 strokes of the rasp this way on this corner, 25 on that corner. So it's taken off a reasonable amount of timber, but mostly off the corners, mostly rounding the belly. We'll pop her back up again. Let's see if it's made any difference. Oh yeah, you can see that's looking a lot more even. That inner limb on the left's working more. Well, I can certainly see it. I don't know if you can. There's our 35 pound at 24 inches. So we're not far off now. But you say we're not braced. And indeed we're not. So it's time to get her braced, I think, now. But that's looking more even. It sort of looks slightly weird there. It looks stiff here in these very outers. That'll do for now. Next step, get it braced. Then have a look, then move on. Slow and steady wins the day.